What is up, YouTube? This is Daniel, and you are tuning into my channel, Life with Dan. Thanks again to each and every single one of you that tunes into my channel and that's checking into this video today. What I'd like to cover for today's video, guys, is pretty interesting. We're going to be talking about what the next 10 years or so could look like, what the next decade could potentially have in store for the biggest social media tech company that we have here in the United States, Facebook. I figured with all the commotion around social media companies and big tech recently, and more specifically with the negativity surrounding the ad revenue business model that companies like Facebook have, it's important to take a step back as a long-term investor in these companies and taking into consideration what the next couple of years could look like from a regulatory standpoint, from a business standpoint, from a popularity standpoint. I feel like in the next couple of years, a lot could change for big tech, and it seems like the CEOs of some of these companies, in particular Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook, seem to know that that's the case. As a former shareholder, I've been getting more and more interested in getting back into the stock actually, and I'm sure there's plenty of you out there that have been in the same spot, watching Facebook as it starts to go down and wondering whether or not you should take advantage of the opportunity. So I'm making this video to help us kind of make that decision with regards to whether or not we should make the jump on Facebook. We'll be looking at things from both a business standpoint and an investor standpoint with regards to whether or not we want to come along for the ride. And just a side note, guys, before we get started, although I am putting out informational videos on stocks and different companies and giving my 2 cents on them, I am not a qualified financial advisor. I'm not licensed to be giving any type of financial advice. So definitely take everything with a grain of salt and always do your own due diligence, always do your own research before you make any investment decisions. So if you guys get any value out of this video, please make sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons, and we'll get right into everything right after the intro. So to get right into it, guys, as of about September 2nd, as you can see here by looking at all 3 of the major indices, the NASDAQ, S&P 500, and the Dow Jones, looks like we've hit a peak and since then have been in a week after week sell-off. This has a lot of investors worried about the possibility of an upcoming bear market this fall, with fears of a revamping coronavirus since it's going to be cold again, fears about the presidential election and who could win and how that'll affect markets, and then, the ongoing talks about the economy, how people are still unemployed, people might be coming close to evictions, and just a lot of craziness going on right now in the United States. When these things come up in the market, because they always come up, markets go up and down, people tend to do one of 3 things: freak out and sell, get ready and buy, or sit back and do nothing. For me in particular, I've been doing a lot of sitting back and doing nothing lately, with the exception of buying little bits and pieces of stocks that I already have and my recent new position in Sonos. But now that the market's been starting to go down, I know that I'm not alone in this too. I've been paying a lot of attention to the big tech companies that I missed out on back in March when everything dropped, and considering getting in if things continue to go down. To keep a long story short, Facebook ended up being the winner to my personal taste when it came to looking at those different big tech companies and deciding if I were to buy one, which one to pick. But like I said, guys, with everything going on with social media companies and big tech lately, what with documentaries pointing out the negativities of the ad revenue business model, government seeming to want to continue probing and continuing the conversations of possibly splitting up big tech, and companies that don't have ad revenue business models recently taking it upon themselves to boycott ads as a way of getting a point across to these companies, makes you think, what lies ahead for Facebook? What lies ahead for their business model? For Mark, for the company as a whole, for the products that they offer. It's definitely something to think about and something you need to take into consideration before you buy the stock. So that's what we're going to be going into today. Now, Facebook is not a company that needs very much introduction or any introduction at all, quite frankly. But as we can see here, it is an American social media conglomerate corporation based in Menlo Park, California, co-founded by Mark Zuckerberg, who is still to this day the company's only CEO. Founded out of a dorm room in Harvard College, the company has grown to be the biggest social media company in the world, and its mission, according to its website, is to give people the power to build community and bring the world closer together. Known for the global phenomenon apps that are Facebook and Instagram, Facebook is also the owner of Messenger, WhatsApp, the company Oculus, and other product offerings like Portal, Workplace, and Novi. And as we take a quick look at their financial highlights for the second quarter, which just ended June 30th, we can see that their total revenue was actually not that that heavily impacted by COVID, they were actually still able to grow 11% year over year. Advertising was $18.3 billion in comparison to $16.6 billion last year, and other, which I'm assuming would be their Oculus products, Portal products, and anything else that doesn't fall into advertising, came at $366 million compared to $262 million for the same quarter last year. Net income for this quarter was drastically different in comparison to June 30, 2019, but that's because, as you can see at the bottom there, of a $2 billion legal expense related to their settlement with the FTC and a $1.1 billion income tax expense due to the Altera Ninth Circuit opinion, which both hit second quarter of 2019 last year. But net income for this quarter is coming in at $5.17 billion in comparison to $2.6 billion last year. And showing what makes it possible to be able to increase revenue like this even in the middle of a COVID pandemic is their active user growth. As you can see here, Facebook daily active users were 1.79 billion on average, an increase of 12% year over year. Their monthly active users were 2.7 billion, an increase of also 12% year over year. So by the looks of it, Facebook hardly took as bad a hit as a lot of other companies did during COVID. They actually saw an increase in advertising revenue and an increase in user engagement, which makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, people were forced to be at home, which, is going to just inevitably turn to people being on the internet, being on social media more. So actually, it turns out to have benefited Facebook in some way. And as we can see here, their guidance seems to kind of, establish the fact that the boost was really due to being at home from COVID, as they mentioned their engagement. It says Facebook DAUs and MAUs in the second quarter of 2020 reflect increased engagement as people around the world sheltered in place and used our products to connect with the people and organizations they care about. And finally, last little financial thing I wanted to look at was their balance sheet as of June 30th, end of second quarter. As we can see here, they ended the quarter with $21 billion in cash and cash equivalents on their balance sheet, which is amazing to see considering the fact that their total liabilities, guys, is $29.2 billion. So they could almost pay all of their liabilities with the amount of cash that they have right now, which they obviously don't have to. There are long-term liabilities and things like that. It's just nice to see that they keep such a strong balance sheet, being the company that they are. So quite a force that is Facebook, as we can see there, doing just over $70 billion in revenue last year, 2019, and poised to do better than that this year, 2020. But that's a snapshot of Facebook as of today, guys. I don't think we need to go very much more into their apps or what Facebook is all about right now, because of the majority of us, most of us probably use one, if not more than one, of the apps within the family, which would be Facebook, Instagram, or WhatsApp. So the focus of this video, like I had mentioned before, is actually going to be more so on the next 10 years, what the next decade, essentially the next generation of business for Facebook will look like, what the next products will be, and what the company culture will, eventually end up changing into as the inevitable pressure of government and the people get bigger and bigger over time. The reason why I'm choosing to stick to a 10-year outlook specifically is because of the fact that Mark Zuckerberg himself, at the top of 2020, put out basically a commitment for the next 10 years, kind of what his goals are going to be, what he's focusing on, and what he sees with regards to the future of Facebook and the products that Facebook will be offering down the road. As it reads here, this decade, I'm going to take a longer-term focus rather than having year-to-year challenges, which is something that he was doing every year. He was putting out just a different challenge, a personal challenge for himself. I've tried to think about what I hope the world and my life will look like in 2030 so I can make sure I'm focusing on those things. By then, if things go well, my daughter Max will be in high school, we'll have the technology to feel truly present with another person no matter where they are, and scientific research will have helped cure and prevent enough diseases to extend our average life expectancy by another 2.5 years. So already as we get into it, Mark is already making some pretty big claims about the future with what seems to be mentions of things like AR, VR, and the future of medicine. And what I'll do now for the sake of time is point out some of the most important things that Mark wrote in his letter that would most relate to Facebook and its future. As we can see here, Mark made mention of a new private social platform, which is something that has been in headlines all over the news recently as government continues to probe Facebook about its use of data, violations of privacy, and things like that. Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg specifically have actually been pretty vocal over the past couple years about the need for regulation and the possibility of government getting involved in regulation with Facebook. As it reads here, being part of such a large community creates its own challenges and makes us crave intimacy. When I grew up in a small town, it was easy to have a niche and sense of purpose, but with billions of people, it's harder to find your unique role. For the next decade, some of the most important social infrastructure will help us reconstruct all kinds of smaller communities to give us that sense of intimacy again. This is one of the areas of innovation I'm most excited about. Our digital social environments will feel very different over the next 5+ years. That's not far away, re-emphasizing private interactions and helping us build the smaller communities we all need in our lives. He also goes into his idea of decentralizing opportunity. Something that Facebook has been a big advocate of recently is being there for small business with their recent Instagram shops and Facebook shops and things like that. It seems like they're moving more towards the smaller businesses, which, as we know, small business is the backbone of the United States, and makes a point of that here in this letter, which just all the more emphasizes that for the future. As it reads here, if we can make it so anyone can sell products through a storefront on Instagram, message and support their customers through Messenger, or send money home to another country instantly and at low cost through WhatsApp, that will go a long way towards creating more opportunity around the world. At the end of the day, a strong and stable economy comes from people succeeding broadly, and the best way to do that is to make it so small businesses can effectively become technology companies. And then things get even more exciting as Mark goes on, as he makes mention of a new computing platform down the road. As it reads here, the technology platform of the 2010s was the mobile phone, the platform of the 2000s before that was the web, and the 1990s was the desktop computer. Each computing platform before was ubiquitously accessible and natural for us to interact with. While I expect phones to still be our primary devices through most of this decade, at some point in the 2020s, we will get breakthrough augmented reality glasses that will redefine our relationship with technology. Augmented and virtual reality are about delivering a sense of presence, the feeling that you're right there with another person or in another place. Instead of having devices that take us away from the people around us, the next platform will help us be more present with each other and help the technology get out of the way. Even though some of the early devices seem clunky, I think these will be the most human and social technology platforms anyone has ever built. And finally, to wrap up his resolution for 2020, Mark Zuckerberg makes yet again another reference to the need for government regulation on social media platforms, as you can see here as he makes mention of new forms of governance. As it reads here, one of the big questions for the next decade is how should we govern the large new digital communities that the internet has enabled? Platforms like Facebook have to make trade-offs on social values we hold dear. To skip onto the bottom, one way to address this is through regulation. As long as our governments are seen as legitimate, rules established through a democratic process could add more legitimacy and trust than rules defined by companies alone. So just to show that Mark Zuckerberg is actually for government being involved in making the rules for privacy and the regulation of social media content. There are a number of areas where I believe governments establishing clearer rules would be helpful, including around elections, harmful content, privacy, and data portability. I've called for new regulation in these areas, and over the next decade, I hope we get clearer rules for the internet. So some pretty incredible stuff to see out of Mark's letter with regards to what the future holds for Facebook. But when you take all those points together and look at what's coming down the road, what you see, at least what I see in my opinion, is a new Facebook, a completely rebranded new Facebook down the road, where the products are completely different and nowhere like what we see them today. Granted, assuming Mark and Facebook are correct about these new technologies and the importance they'll have down the road, obviously these advances will be seen throughout the tech industry at large, and you'll see various companies come out over the years with different AR, VR technologies, digital currencies, work at home softwares, things like that. So it won't all just be Facebook. But what's exciting about this, guys, is that even though they're the biggest social media tech company out there right now, Facebook is at the forefront of these technological advances, embracing AR and VR, embracing digital currencies. They acquired Oculus back in 2014 for $2 billion. People didn't really see the sense in buying that type of company, and really it's been kind of a joke that Facebook invested in something like Oculus up until now, with a lot more conversation going on with the possibilities of AR and VR being something that's heavily implemented into our technological futures. As we look here at Facebook's description of Oculus, with Oculus we're creating new ways for people to defy distance and connect with each other and the world around them. Through virtual reality, we can radically redefine the way people work, play, and connect. As Oculus and as AR and VR technologies continue to advance and show new ways that they can be utilized in both commercial and consumer ways, the technology is just going to get more and more valuable as it goes on. Facebook has already started to make bets with Oculus type technology for small businesses. As we can see here, they want to bring VR to companies with Oculus for Business. As it reads here, in the year since we launched Oculus Quest, demand for VR has grown, not just for entertainment, but also immersive professional training and virtual meetings. Salespeople and Nestle Purina, for example, are using VR to visualize retail displays and gather sales teams while reducing travel. Johnson & Johnson Institute is training surgeons with Oculus and helping improve patient outcomes. Employees at Hilton are using interactive simulations to gain a deeper understanding of the complexities of hotel operations. Now we're making it easier for more companies to use the power of VR to improve business results. These images here give a very vivid picture of what this could look like down the road for VR and for Facebook's Oculus as it becomes more and more implementable for businesses. All of a sudden, it gets a lot more exciting, the possibilities with AR and VR. All Facebook really needed was to have a few years with the technology to see how it can be used, to see how it can be grown, and now I feel like they really are building up that excitement for it. And as these pieces of hardware, as these VR headsets and the controllers and the soon-to-be glasses, get more and more modern and more sophisticated, things will get sleeker. As Mark mentioned, they'll get less bulky, and I really do feel like there'll be a space for these things to be a norm in our world. Imagine those movies where people have just glasses on, or some really simple thin piece of hardware around them that projects images out in front of you that no longer requires you to keep a phone in your hand. So just a lot of exciting possibilities there when you think about what consumers can do with it and business can do with it. It's like the same thing that Facebook's been all about, connecting people and giving people access to the entire world, but it's just like that next step of it, that new wave of social networking, the one that doesn't necessarily require a screen. But on the topic of screens, actually, their Portal line of products is another area where I think they could have a lot of opportunity down the road as they continue to innovate and implement AR and VR into these things and basically change the way that people communicate on a day-to-day basis with their loved ones, coworkers, etc. Right now, what their product line looks like is 4 different items: Portal TV, Mini, the regular Portal, and Portal Plus, which are, with the exception of the TV, different HD displays that allow you to communicate with people. Some of the cool features that these Portal products have, because they're not just your average everyday tablet with a camera, they can keep up with the action, as it says here, because it has a smart camera which automatically pans and zooms to keep up with basically people that are in the picture. Move and talk freely and always stay in the frame. Keep everyone in view. As more people enter a room, smart camera automatically widens to keep everyone in view so you don't miss a moment. You're able to make video calls with the Facebook apps like Messenger and WhatsApp, and even when someone doesn't have a Portal themselves, you can call them directly onto their phone. The Portal products actually come with Alexa built in as well, so you can use voice control to, control your smart home, check on who's at the front door, listen to music, watch news, and check out other apps. And keeping in mind their new outlook on privacy and what their goals are for security down the road, Facebook has implemented some pretty cool privacy aspects for their Portal products. You can easily disable the camera and microphone, and you can even block the lens if you're trying to make sure you're really secure with a camera cover. And in addition, all Portal video calls are encrypted. Right now, it may not seem like a lot. It might just seem like a very specific type of tablet that has a very specific purpose. But as I envision what Facebook is doing with AR and what they're doing with Portal and how they could be taking communication into the future, basically it'd be easy to get communication going without the need to have it on your hand, basically, to be able to walk around your house, ask the tablet to make a call, and with the smart camera be able to go about your business, not needing to stop and stay in front of a camera. When you think about it, that actually changes a lot for people. It actually does make a huge difference not having to stare at a phone, not having to have it on your hand while you're talking to somebody. So, I see the opportunity there. I see what it can become as these technologies get better. So another thing to get excited about. And then we have Novi, formerly known as Calibra, as many of you may know. This is their digital currency platform that they are still working on, that they seem to be betting a lot of money on for the future. As it reads here, today we're excited to introduce Novi, the new name and brand for the digital wallet that will help people send and hold Libra digital currencies. While we've changed our name from Calibra, we haven't changed our long-term commitment to helping people around the world access affordable financial services. Whether you're sending money home to support the family members who supported you, or you're receiving money from your friend, no matter where they are, the Novi wallet will make money work better for everyone. Novi, alongside Oculus, but probably even more so, is the business opportunity that I think is going to make Facebook the most money down the road. This is where I think they're really getting ahead of the curve and getting ready for what the future of everyday finance looks like for the average everyday person. As we can see here from their website, Novi makes it simple, secure, and instant to send, spend, and receive digital payments in Messenger, WhatsApp, and the Novi app. So Novi will be available across all of Facebook's platforms, which is a very cool thing. Novi is for the Libra payment system and uses blockchain technology. When money money moves freely, it's better for everyone everywhere. So the idea here is that any individual, once Libra is out and fully implemented, would be able to send money to anyone in the world. And what basically happens is the money you send in, whether it be US dollars or euros or whatever, gets converted into Libra. And then the person that you're sending the money to receives Libra, and they can then convert that Libra into their own currency. So, an example, if I was going to send money to my grandma in Mexico, I would send her 20 US dollars and through the Libra system. It would turn into Libra coins, however that works. She would receive the Libra and then convert it to the equivalent in Mexican pesos. What Facebook is doing here with Novi, I think, is really the beginning of something huge for the future of financing, and obviously for the future of Facebook if they're able to successfully implement it. Obviously, this is something that would benefit consumers, but even more so, the opportunity there is businesses, right? Small businesses, and it adds on to the idea of Facebook becoming this all-encompassing support for not just the everyday person, but small business and America at large. If everything they say with what should be the results of Novi is true, if it's able to cut costs on things, if it's able to skip through, things like hidden fees and really truly make it easier for people to send and receive money across the world, I mean, just imagine the progress for humanity that could provide. And on top of all that, imagine the benefit that could provide for Facebook. Just thinking about these three products down the road, let's say down the next 10 years, thinking of Oculus, a Portal, and Novi. I mean, just taking it from a small business customer perspective, the opportunity there is incredible. I mean, these three products could pretty much be fully implemented into a business, in my opinion, and make a business much more productive. I just couldn't see how Facebook wouldn't be a titan 10 times over down the road with these products implemented, assuming that regulation ends up on their side. But that is the very thing we are most uncertain about going forward, guys. We do not know, nor will we ever have a way of knowing what regulators will end up deciding when it comes to Facebook and the other big tech companies. What we do know is that we have a cooperative CEO who has been more than willing and open to the discussion of government regulation within social media, even if it means changing some things about the company's culture and the way that they do business. We also know that Facebook has an arsenal of uncomparable, high-quality products and services that now and for years to come will continue to satisfy customers and continue to connect people and businesses to their friends, loved ones, and customers all around the world. We also know that Facebook is working on some very innovative technologies that could open doors to a world of technological tools that we never thought would be possible. So when we look at it from a business perspective, Facebook is obviously still very much a titan, still very much has revenue coming in, and will continue to bring it in for years to come. And what we really have to worry about here is, regulators and the potential for policy and the potential for the company getting broken up, if it really got to that extreme. As an investor now, one has to think about what this will look like for the stock down the road, and really just to put it simply, I think we could expect a lot of volatility for the stock going forward. But I mean, that's expected, right? Facebook isn't exactly a stock that just shoots up. It has its times, it has its ups and downs. But over this next decade, I do think that there is slightly more risk with the amount of volatility that we could see. I feel like we're just now getting into what is going to be a lot more antitrust lawsuits and things like that for Facebook and the big tech companies. So I don't imagine that the drama will slow down anytime soon. What that could mean is that really you might have several opportunities to get into Facebook stock in the next couple of years. What I would do with that information, I think if you're someone that believes in Facebook for the long term, if you're someone that believes in their products and believes that they will come out winning on the other side of all this regulatory stress and will continue to operate as a full-on force that Facebook is, then there's no reason not to be a holder of the stock. Jim Cramer famously says that you should just own Apple, not trade it. I think Facebook is getting to a point where it might fall into that category as well, because no matter what happens, no matter what regulators come after it, no matter what activist groups come after it, Facebook continues to move on and it continues to win. That just seems to be the reality of the situation. Now, does that mean that I'm looking to invest into Facebook in the next couple of days? I'm not entirely decided yet. I want to see if it continues to trickle down as more and more speculation and fear seems to be coming into the market. I am interested in getting into the stock, but it's not something that I'm necessarily feeling like I need to jump into right now. I don't feel like I'm missing a once-in-a-lifetime entry point with Facebook, as I mentioned, with what could potentially be a lot of volatility down the road. But anyways, that's pretty much going to wrap it up for today's video, guys. I just wanted to take a look at Facebook, a company that's been in all of our lives for, some time now, and that's pretty much been engraved into what we consider to be everyday life. So thanks again to each and every single one of you who has tuned into this video. If you guys did take any value out of it, if you guys enjoyed the video, do me the favors of hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Leave a comment down below with your 2 cents. I did appreciate the comments on my other video. Finally started to see some comments now, so that was pretty nice. Thank you guys. I'll be seeing you next week. This is Life with Dan. Have a good weekend.